My wife, 30, worked at a stable a few minutes away from where we lived. She would always come home dirty and smelly and immediately get in the shower. I, 38, knew that after her showers she'd usually come on to me. I loved the routine we had. I worked from home, but occasionally had to go into the office. My wife started staying late at the stable, claiming that the pregnant horse needed a little extra care before she came home. I didn't mind, but she started staying 2 hours late every night. It was a lot. We only had about 5 hours together each evening. Minus those 2 hours, I was missing my wife. On top of that, when she came home and showered, she acted distant and indifferent toward me. I thought maybe she was tired, but her feelings toward me shouldn't have changed. I tried to ask her about it, but she said what I thought she'd say, that she was tired. When it got to the point we hadn't had sex in a month, I knew something was wrong. Then she came home, already showered. I asked her about it, and she said she helped her friend move some stuff in her house, so she let her shower. That was out of character, because she always told me where she was going. I checked our family GPS app on my phone, and hers was turned off now, so she didn't want me to see where she showered tonight. I decided on a different tactic. I started coming on to her, saying it had been a long time since we touched and I missed her. She literally pushed me away and said she wasn't in the mood. I asked her how that was possible, if we usually did it 3 times a week, but hadn't done it in a month at that point. She didn't know what to say. She tried to say that she felt smothered by me, but I knew that was nonsense. She just didn't like that I was picking up on these clues and wouldn't let her get away with betraying me. I asked her why her family locator was off, and she was silent. After a few awkward moments, she said, "See, this is what I mean by smothering." I asked her why she'd been so distant and what I could do to help our relationship, because apparently something had changed. She tried to say nothing had changed, and she really did just move furniture for her friend. I asked who the friend was, and she said it was Patty, the owner of the stable. That was great, because I knew I could ask her to call Patty right now and ask if she was helping her tonight and showered there. My wife was extremely upset with me for asking that. She said it was late now, and Patty usually went to bed early, so she didn't want to call her. I said if she wanted to keep our relationship, she needed to do this for me, so I could maintain my trust in her. She did not like the ultimatum, but she decided to call her and try and ask Patty in such a cover for her. Patty did not cover for her. She said she was not at her house and had no idea what she was talking about. A lot of screaming ensued, and my wife hung up on Patty. We argued about who was supposed to leave the house, because both of our names were on it. I ended up sleeping on the couch that night, but the next morning, I was overjoyed to find that Patty had fired my wife from the stable, under the assumption that she was cheating on me. My wife was so mad at me, saying it was my fault she lost her dream job. I asked how that was possible, if she was the one that chose to lie to me, and I simply called her out on it. I asked her again where she showered the night prior, and she didn't say anything, because she already lied once, and it didn't work. Just then, Patty called me. I was my wife's emergency contact at the stable. I answered it by saying, "Hey Patty," and my wife freaked out. She came at me, trying to grab my phone from me. I yelled for her to get off me, and Patty said she was going to call 911. I was surprised she jumped to that so quickly, but at this point, I thought she probably knew more than I did. My wife didn't know she said that, and she kept trying to take my phone. I refused, so she started hitting me repeatedly to try to get it out of my hand. I couldn't believe this was happening. I think at this moment, she forgot or didn't care that we had a camera in our living room. The cops arrived after she stopped hitting me, and she was shocked they showed up. She asked if I called them, and I told her Patty did. She was completely dismayed. I told the cops what she did, and said I had it on camera. When I showed them, they arrested her. Just then, Patty called me back. I told her what happened, and then she told me what I was trying to figure out all along. Patty had hired a new stable hand who was 20, 10 years younger than my wife. I guess age is but a number. They started flirting and hanging out late at the stable, but Patty knew my wife was married. My wife tried to ask her to cover for her, and she refused, telling her to keep her out of it. My wife made the wrong decision to say she went to Patty's house, but it was the only person I wouldn't be suspicious of. Then she made the terrible decision to try to call Patty for backup when she already told her to leave her out of it. The reason Patty decided to call the police was because she knew my wife was hitting me and that my wife threatened me. This was so surprising to hear. My wife never threatened anyone before that I knew of. She'd always been so kind and sweet. I guess when her double life was about to be exposed, she lost it. I filed for divorce, and she had to pay me a court settlement for the attack I had on video. Patty told me that she noticed my wife going to AP's house, but for obvious reasons she didn't want to get involved. Eventually, she told me that AP lived with his parents, and he was sneaking my 30-year-old wife into the basement. What a lovely situation. After this dramatic situation, AP didn't want to see my wife again. She started acting crazy like I was the one who ruined her life. I told her I didn't force her to make poor decisions. Take this as a lesson to all. Don't live a double life and then get mad at everyone else when your lies are exposed. Don't cheat on your significant other because it's only asking for bad karma. Wow, OP. I am sorry you went through this. It's almost like your wife didn't expect to ever be caught, even though her behavior towards you was changing. She became a bully when she threatened her own boss and actually attacked you. She let her ego get way too big and only followed her weak-willed brain. She didn't consider anyone else when she started seeing a boy 18 years younger than her husband. She just proved that she did not have the maturity to maintain an honorable relationship with an older man. I am so sorry you fell for this woman. OP, she was incapable of communicating openly with you and behaving like a proper wife. I can't believe she would choose to do this for a boy that lived with his parents. What could she have possibly been thinking? I am glad you won against her in court and came out on top of this mess. I wish you nothing but the best of luck. Now for today's second story. My wife, 28, and I, 25, got married in 2020. Maybe that was a sign our marriage wouldn't work out. We delayed our honeymoon until 2022, but it proved to be too soon. We arrived in Italy in June, and it was absolutely beautiful. We had one great day touring around town before I came down with a terrible sickness. When I got to the ICU, I was fighting for my life alone against COVID in a foreign hospital. I wondered what my wife was doing and if she was okay, but I shouldn't have been thinking about her no-good rotten self. Thankfully, I recovered after 5 days in the ICU. My wife actually tried to persuade the doctor to keep me a little while longer to make sure I was okay, but it wasn't because she was concerned for my well-being. On the car ride on the way to our hotel, she was acting so distant and anxious to see me, not relieved or happy. I couldn't believe it. All I wanted was to feel close to her after nearly dying in the hospital, but she didn't seem to be thinking about me at all. She got in the shower and I used the opportunity to check her phone. I found messages between her and another man, a local man. They took pictures together at all the iconic tourist destinations. They ate at restaurants together, went to a museum, got on a boat, and went to a play. I mean, it was a 5-star romantic vacation. The only problem was I wasn't there. My wife was seeing another man behind my back while I nearly died. As soon as she came out of the shower, I confronted her. She played it off by telling me he was just a flirtatious tour guide. He didn't want her vacation to be wasted away worrying about me when she couldn't do anything to change my situation. I wasn't totally convinced by what she was telling me, but I figured if she got on the plane home and stopped acting so distant, I might be able to move on from this whole experience. Well, 2 days after we got home, she tried to go back to Italy to see him. She ordered the plane ticket with my credit card. I was already back to work when she did this, and I got a phone call about the unusual purchase. I was dumbfounded and didn't want to believe she'd be trying to go back to Italy to see this guy. If she was, there was no hope for us. She was crazy for thinking she could just leave the country to see another man. How foolish could she be? I was able to cancel the charge from going through. When I got home, she was upset. She couldn't tell me why, but I knew it was because her plane ticket was canceled. I finally started yelling at her to leave the house and told her about the fraudulent charge on my account. She was shocked I was telling her to leave, like it never crossed her mind that I would find out or want a divorce. I asked her if she was going to see that Italian dude, and she tried saying no. I asked her why she was going back to Italy without me, and she didn't know what to say. I told her again to get out, and she wasn't very willing to pack. She literally didn't have any family or friends that were willing to come help her. I was stuck with this woman. I moved in with my father temporarily. When he heard what was going on, he didn't hesitate to help me out. He was a lawyer, so he helped me file for divorce and prove my wife's infidelity. I was able to get back some of the money she spent while she was with an Italian guy, and using my bank cards, I was permitted to keep the house. My wife was really apologetic at this point. We had a few court hearings that weren't looking good for her. She didn't have a job or anywhere to live now. She was starting over now, contrary to when she married into my wealthy family, was provided a nice home and taken on luxurious vacations. Realizing how badly she screwed up, she tried asking me if we could start over and have a child to reconcile. Little too late for that, I told her. She would call me at least once a week to ask how I was doing and if she could borrow money or stay on the couch for a few nights. She was staying with people she found on Tinder. It was not a pleasant lifestyle, far from her Italian fantasy. I asked her if she ever slept with the Italian guy since I never knew for sure, and she didn't have anything to lose now. She admitted that she did, several times. She justified it by saying she needed to enjoy her time in Italy, and she said she didn't regret it at all. I told her I didn't regret divorcing her at all, and she'd never get any help from me. Since then, she hasn't called me. I've started dating again, and it must be a small coincidental world because my girlfriend is from Italy, here to finish her college studies. We'll see what happens with that. I hope my story inspires you to stay positive and keep moving forward when you experience heartbreak. I didn't ever expect my wife to be so selfish, and while I was battling COVID of all things, I really didn't know who I married, and I hope none of you make the same mistake. Get to know this partner for as long as it takes while also maintaining your own independence and stability. Wow, OP. I am so sorry that your spouse betrayed you while you fought for your life. She did not consider you in the decisions she made. She turned out to be very selfish, and I'm sure she won't get far in life if she doesn't change her ways. The best way to have a successful marriage is to always see each other as equals. Spend your time serving your spouse more than you look out for yourself, and they should do the same. Treat them as you would want to be treated at all times, no matter what life throws at you. Everything has a cause and effect, so plant good seeds and focus your volition on honorable things. I know you'll find good people and luck in your life. OP. I'm really glad to hear that your father helped you through the divorce and it turned out okay for you. I wish for you to find the perfect balance and harmony with your future spouse. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like,